Buckle up. Thank you for listening to Musicians and Beyond, where we bring you the backstage info on the life, lyrics, and long journeys of the music industry. You have hosts John Sarabian and Mark Lawhorn with co-host JC Don Valeras in the studio today. Today we are going to be interviewing Mike Valeras, who is a New England native and has currently hung his hat in Nashville, Tennessee. He's got a history of music and teaching. We would like to welcome Mike to Musicians and Beyond. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be home.
It's great to have you here, man. It's great to have you here, just like old times.
Malden's changed.
A little downtown is looking a little bit
right?
different. So when were you here?
I taught at Malden Catholic from 2000 to 2009, right up until I moved to Nashville.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
In a testimonial that I read about you, kind of sums you up.
Uh-oh.
But this one here was from Chris Henderson.
Oh, from Three Doors Down.
From Three Doors Down, man.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Dude, that's huge. He goes, I've learned more in 1 month with Mike than I did with all my other instructors combined.
Oh, that's sweet. That's sweet. He's a great dude. He's a great
That's
dude.
cool. So
we live in the same town. So we live a little bit north of Nashville in a town called Hendersonville.
Yeah.
And he lives on the lake up there. So, I don't remember how we got hooked up. Maybe his management maybe had heard of my teaching and maybe put him in touch. I can't recall. It was a few years back.
yeah, I mean, you're one of the most respected music instructors in the whole area.
Oh, well, that's nice. But
Well, no, that's
do my best.
that's what I hear.
That's nice of you to say. But yeah, Chris, I appreciate it. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. I haven't seen him in a long time, but
Yeah.
those were fun.
Mike, you said you do your best. Well, your best is pretty damn good.
So you do a lot of instruction.
I do quite a bit of instruction.
Is that your main?
That's what I do for a living. And probably. Well, I was about to say I may even enjoy that even more than even some aspects of performance in some ways, but it's true. I love to teach. Yeah.
And do you focus on like the youth or adults or anyone that will listen?
Most of the people that seek me out are ones that are looking to get into higher level guitar knowledge, higher level guitar pedagogy, an interest in improvisation, an interest in jazz, just really getting into the nuts and bolts of their instrument at a higher level. So I teach at Belmont University. I teach privately out of my home, and I also teach at Johnson University remotely. And I think it's just a word of mouth thing. It's just like hopefully if you send one person out with increased skill and increased confidence that, more will come knocking.
Yeah, you definitely have a good name out there in Nashville and around here. I mean, you've done some great stuff. You went to Berkeley College?
Yeah, Berkeley was great. Yeah, I did Berkeley. I guess I could date myself. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm proud of where I've been. It's 90 to 94. Yeah, it was when I did Berkeley College of Music. Yeah, right out of high school. Wonderful place. A lot of people I know are still there. Hello, Berkeley Guitar Department. I miss you.
So you've been doing music 25 plus years now.
Yeah. Yeah. In some capacity. Sometimes it was more teaching. Sometimes it was more playing. It's always going on simultaneously. Yeah.
Do you have any interesting stories about walking across the stage to receive your diploma?
Oh, yeah. Sting was the recipient of the honorary doctorate when I got my diploma.
That's pretty cool.
So that's a funny story. So I'm a huge Sting fan, right? Huge Sting fan. So here's the moment I'm going to get my diploma, and there's Sting. You know what I said to him? I said, "Thank you, Mr. Sting," is what I said. It's awful. Just awful.
Wah, wah, wah.
But I got the picture of it, and I'm like beaming. It's like I didn't know whether I was more excited to finally graduate or shake hands with Sting.
That's legendary,
At
man.
that point, he's considering himself a superhero. I'm Mr. Sting.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sting. Oh, you know what he said? He goes, I can't do an English accent, but he's like, very nice. That's what he said to me.
Wow. That's great. That's a cool story.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
That's a cool story. So you've met a lot of famous musicians along the way. You've taught them. You've played alongside them. Who have you played with?
Proudest moments as far as playing with musicians. Best musician I've ever played with was my teacher, Charlie Banakis. That's the best musician I've ever played with in my life.
Wow.
And he was only famous in the world of education. And anyone who's listening to this, who's familiar with this area in jazz music and jazz pedagogy in this area knows who Charlie was. But he was probably the greatest jazz educator of our time. He's passed away. He passed away in 2009. So that was the greatest musician I've ever played with. Wow. Other people like Steve Vai is up there. Larry Coryell was a big name. Larry's passed too, so I was really proud to play with him as well.
You said something interesting earlier about your passion for music and your passion for teaching, and you kind of fall into the teaching environment. We've talked to a few artists here in studio, and when we're interviewing them, a lot of them reference the fact that they're still learning every day.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's great. Musicians actually reach out to work from you and want to keep honing their craft and learning. And I think a lot of fans at home just think, oh, well, a guy gets to this level and he must just be, sitting at home, or he's performing only at concerts or in the studio.
Right.
But it's a lot of work.
It really depends what you want to do. It really depends what's important to you. If you want to acquire a set of skills and be at a level where you can get a road gig and just kind of play the parts, and that's great. Then there's a level of musicianship that goes to that next level where it becomes more of an art form, and you work on your own development, and you work on your own sense of artistry and your personal voice, so to speak. That's a whole other story. That's an endeavor that's going to take you for the rest of your life. So I think that's kind of what I've gravitated towards, not only in my teaching but also in my playing. These days, I kind of look at things as trying to hone my own identity and my own voice and my own sound and the music that I make. And even if I'm playing with other people, it's important to me that there's some sort of identity in what I do, that's personal and that's honest, and that takes a lot of work. That's constant practice.
Wow. So you and your wife are both huge into music, and your wife happens to be our co-host today, JC Don Valeras. Do you guys do anything musically together?
Well, that's how we met. I had been, well, you can tell. Jason, you want to tell the story?
Sure. Mike auditioned to play guitar in my band. We actually got booked to open for Vince Gill and Amy Grant, and it was going to be a big show, and I needed to put together a bigger band than I had been playing with. And so I put out a call for guitar players. Should I tell them how I picked you? It was solely based on his skill.
Yeah, that's up to you.
I got so many people that wanted to audition to be in our band, and I could not decide who to reach out to because I was a little bit overwhelmed. So, true story, hand to God, I looked at my computer screen, I closed my eyes, and I put my finger down on one person's name, and it was Mike Valeras' name. So
Seriously?
I would like to say that I solely based his...
That was your first blind date.
It sure was, and then he showed up.
What a weird experience, too, because I had been completely out of the arena of playing anything commercial or pop or anything like that for years. I mean, I had made a commitment to just concentrating on, I don't think I was practicing anything other than bebop language at that time. I had made a serious commitment to a certain art form and changing gears to from being in bands and chasing record deals and all that sort of thing. Like, I really was in a different mindset. And then all of a sudden I was like, I wonder if I could do that one more time. I wonder if I could just kind of enter that commercial realm and see if I still got that fire in me to hop up on stage and do a show like in the old days. I'm just like, and country music was starting to get a little bit more popular. And I said, I've never done any country music in my career. So there was also that. Here's a genre of music I've never delved into, and I'm still relatively young that I think I would like to get on stage and put on a show. So let me try this. I met my wife.
So he showed up to the audition, and thank God he was a very talented guitar player, because if he wasn't, we would have had a problem. But he was, and
it's so weird. Like,
that is
who's going to hire the guy that's been transcribing Bill Evans and Charlie Parker solos for the last 10 years? You know what I mean? It's like
serendipity.
It's so weird.
Absolutely, yeah, meant to be. Definitely meant to be.
So is that why you moved to Nashville?
I think whether we had both met each other or not, we were both ready for a move. I think it just made the leap easier to know that you had a person willing to do it with you. But I was ready for that next thing. I mean, I love it here. Boston's incredible, but I think I had hit that glass ceiling. You know what I mean? It's like I was gigging a ton in weddings. I was gigging a ton with my own group in jazz combos. I was studying. Like I said, I was with Charlie Banakis, but there was still that gnawing thing that I want to know that all this hard work would make me of value in one of the three musical centers, whether it be New York, LA, or Nashville. Did all this hard work matter, that I have something to offer a larger music community? Could I hack it? You know what I mean? Or it's not even like a making it thing. It's like, here's this amazing community. If I go there, can I be a part of it? And will they need me?
Right. Well, there's a lot of ups and downs. A couple interviews ago, he was explaining you have to be able to accept the no's.
It was rough, brother. It was rough. I don't want to talk about. I don't know if I could talk about all the downs. It was not easy. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's not an easy thing. And then if you go on the road, you're got to leave your family. There's a lot that you have to give up. It's not just,
yeah, it's not an easy thing to do. We don't have any children, so there's that, but
Yeah.
our first, how many years there?
Probably 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 was brutal. And if you can get through that, you'll be all right.
yeah. Yeah. And do you guys think you'll do something together musically again in the future?
I don't know. I'm not against it. What we do intersects in places. We help each other out when we can.
I think a lot of what we do, kind of like you said, it crosses over each other. I mean, we're still both very much involved in the music business, right? So we bounce ideas off of each other because we understand the industry, and a lot of people don't understand the way the music industry, especially in Nashville, work. So the fact that we are able to do that, it feels like we work together almost, But of course, I mean, there are so many times when I'm working on writing a song and I'm like, what is this chord? I don't know where this goes. And Mike will jump in and help me out with that. And I think we always do it. I work a lot. I designed his last album.
Everything you see about me online is her.
I was going to say, I do a lot of
Right,
that.
I don't do any of that.
No country chops, no background in it, and you decided to go down to Nashville with your jazz background.
Yeah.
And
It's insane. It's insane. I did.
That's a leap of faith.
I was teaching at Berkeley last summer for their summer sessions, and like one of my former mentors, my former teachers, said to me, he's just like, I thought you wouldn't. And how'd you end up down there? Where do you think you'd end up down there? Yeah, it is weird, right? But there's so much there besides country music. I mean, there's so much there. It's of course that's the main draw of the industry, and it's an important part of the scene down there. But the real Nashville is so much more than that. I want to give a shout out to all my musician friends in the jazz and artistic community down there. It's the most wonderful, accepting, nurturing scene of people. Some of the most amazing musicians I've ever met. There's
great culture.
It's unbelievable. There's great Latin musicians. There's great jazz musicians, fusion musicians, funk, pop. There's a lot of talent there. It's a great community.
I also think it's one of the things that has made you stand out. And I think, we were talking earlier today about making it in Nashville. You have to have something unique to offer. If you're a copycat of every other person down there, you're not going to be able to stand out. And what you've been able to bring to the table is something that isn't as familiar to the Nashville industry. Of course, there's a community of musicians who are like-minded, but you came into the town with something a little bit different. And I think it's been a big part, especially with your education. I think what you bring to the table as a teacher is a little bit different than the average person teaching a guitar player who may want to, branch away from the country music genre.
Yeah, I guess I do come from a point of mentorship, and wanting to help in that respect and give something back to the town. That's important. But what I was saying earlier about developing your own sound and trying to develop your own identity, that's the only thing that can really set you apart anywhere. Yeah. As long as you're just patient enough to just hang out and let wherever you are, let whatever town you're in decide where it wants to place you. Nashville is like that because there are so many talented people. It's going to define you relatively quickly.
Well, you said it earlier, and it sticks out that you said you have to go out and put it all out there and let the town decide what it wants from you.
It's like the island on Lost. You know what I mean? It's like basically the town will take control and...
Great reference.
Right? It's like it's going to do with you what it will. And that's kind of what happened for me. It didn't matter what I thought I wanted to do when I moved down there. I thought I'd try a little bit of everything. Maybe I'll try and get a road gig. Maybe I'll do sessions and within a few years, Nashville said, nope, we need you here. And this is where your gifts are needed, and so be it.
That's awesome.
So I just do what I do, and that's it.
Now, are you still playing around with the Mike Valeras trio?
Yes. Yeah, that's my heart project. So that's my trio in Nashville consists of myself, Wes Little, and Brian Allen, two very prominent musicians in the area. And up here, I've been playing with Irvin Demo and Steve Langone from this area, if there's ever gigs in this area. But down there, it's Wes and Brian.
And you guys just released an album, and that was titled Cover Me.
Correct.
So how can people download that? Or
that's on all streaming platforms. It's wherever you get your music, Spotify, Apple Music, everywhere else. Either go to my website at MikeValerismusic.com or just Google me. It's everywhere.
Cool. You've both made it pretty far in your industry, and you're at a level that a lot of people hope to attain, right? And you come back in May, you were playing up at the Chelmsford Community Arts Center. Near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
And so I know that the trio you played with up here was very impressive. And
thank you.
Is that something you came back to do because you grew up there and it's giving back to a community? I know because you were on the bill up there as well, right?
Yeah, and actually, the Chelmsford Center for the Arts is one of my clients. I do a lot of their marketing and their website and graphic design and stuff like that. I think at the end of the day, we both do the things that mean something to us. And in an industry where so much is about smoke and mirrors and the way things look and the way they're supposed to look, we both are really, really like-minded in the sense that we do things that mean something to us. So
it's good to do something closer to your hometown. You know, I'm from Lowell, so it was a good central location. When we released the record, we did it at the Lily Pad in Cambridge, so that was more of like a Boston centralized show. And so I hadn't done anything closer to home, so we figured the next one we did would be up there.
That's
so
great.
Excellent. So speaking of your album, I'm going to play one of your songs.
Sure.
And then I want you to tell me a little bit about the background of it.
Sure.
First of all, the title is super catchy. Mingus for Dingus. All right, let's play this, and then we want to hear the story behind it. Okay, Mike, that was Mingus for Dingus. Can you just give us a little bit of background on this?
It's funny because Wes Little, are you listening? Like Wes Little, my drummer back in Nashville, always calls it the wrong thing, and he calls it a Mingus de Fingus. So it's the other way around, pal. So it's just a cute story. It's like my godson, when he was a toddler, whenever my brother would put on some Charles Mingus, he would just start dancing like crazy, So it was, what I did is I took the Mingus tune, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, and I wrote what's called a contrafact, which is you take the chord changes from one tune, you put a different melody to it, you base it off of the same chord changes, and I did a really twisted version of the chord changes of that tune with a different melody. And my brother always used to call my godson Dingus. I was like, let's look at this little Dingus dance. You know what I mean? So I just called the tune Mingus for Dingus. It's just a cute little story.
Yeah, it's good back info on.
And he loves it. And he's, how old is Christopher now? 8. He loves to come to the shows, and he knows it's his tune, and he beams when I play it.
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome.
That's great. What other stories do you have about some of the music that you've written?
It's what's amazing is actually, we were talking about Malden Catholic. Like one of the tricks I used to have when I used to teach high school is I used to teach a guitar class. And while the kids were practicing on their own, that was actually a good little proving ground for if something I was writing was going to stick. So I would sit at my desk while the kids were practicing. And just if I had an idea for a riff or a tune, I'd just kind of play it to myself. And if none of the teenagers would like look up, I know, all right, that's not a keeper. And then if I played something and everyone's heads went up and said, what is that? I'm like, all right, that's going to work. So I take notes. So there was a lot of the times I would use that as a little litmus test. Like, so Malden Catholic comes back.
Nice.
My memory for that. I mean, every tune is different. The new album is interesting because it's, except for the song you just played, everything else is a kind of a twisted version of a standard or tune that I've been influenced by, a composer I've been influenced by. So this record has been fun to make because I actually don't feel I have anything to give to the jazz world by playing a standard the way it's been done a million times. I can't improve on Duke Ellington, right? It's like I can't improve on Miles Davis. So if I feel I can't improve on these masters, it's about, like what I said earlier, what do I sound like and what is my identity and how can I take these things and deconstruct them and turn them into something else? So that's really what the album is.
I've heard you describe it as creatively improvised.
Well, improvisation is a huge part. I mean, it is, the word jazz is a little bit difficult to nail down. It's not one that I use a great deal for my music. Number one, the musicians that played that music didn't refer to it as jazz. It's a music industry term. So jazz is there as a label for them to know where to put me on iTunes or something like that. So the history of this music is black music, and it comes from a history of improvisation. And it's important that we know that this music is music pioneered by Louis Armstrong and Charlie Christian and Charlie Parker. And, so it's this music, improvisation in this music is essential in my opinion, whether it's swings or whether it's funky or whether it's based in rock and roll or that sort of thing. So yeah, improvisation is the heart of what I do, but I don't think you could listen to my music. I can't call my music strictly jazz because I'm a child of the 1980s, right? There was that summer I listened to Bryan Adams' Reckless, and that was the only thing I listened to. So that's in my DNA somewhere, right? There's the 4 years that I listened to nothing else but Huey Lewis and the News, right? So it's like those sounds are in my DNA, right? So it's you're kind of like you're a whole of the sum of your parts. You know what I mean? As far as what your music sounds like. But there is Bill Evans and there is Sonny Rollins and there is Herbie Hancock and what I do, and that's in my DNA as well, and you're going to hear that.
So as you're driving down the road in your car, what do you listen to?
This stuff. Podcasts.
Podcasts. Excellent. Yeah. I hope you have Musicians and Beyond as your number one on the playlist.
I listen to podcasts and 80s music that makes me feel 17 again. You pop in the first Extreme album because it makes me think of the summer of 1989.
Excellent.
And then jazz music and all the great artists is usually done at home when I don't have the roar of the tires on the road disrupting my hearing, so I can actually listen to things and steal things from them.
Yeah.
But no, my listening in the car is strictly nostalgia. It's the John Hughes playlist.
So you could probably be driving down the road and think of something that you want to write.
I do get ideas like that. There's a Peter Gabriel tune on the new record, which is kind of like the odd man out because it's not a jazz standard. Digging in the Dirt by Peter Gabriel. That came to me in the car as an idea. Like I always loved that tune. That's just a great, passionate, dark piece of music. Yeah. So I was like, that would be good as like a.
Where was the weirdest place that an idea for a song ever happened?
It's actually when I'm playing other tunes. It's because the music is so improvisational. You know what I mean? Like actually on the bandstand. So we could be improvising and playing one tune and I could play a thing. I could play a part that comes out of who knows where, your subconscious or something. And then hopefully tape is running or video is running and I can remember what it was. And that turns into tunes a lot of the time. Just comes
wicked
from,
interesting.
Yeah. So
it's very interesting.
You always have to keep something running. That's why actually social media is kind of cool because it gives you the opportunity to have, if you're deciding to tape some content for social media, record some content for social media that day and just sit around noodling, yeah, you may find something cool to post, but you'll have documentation of ideas that you can kind of go back to, and sometimes those become compositions.
Yeah, one of our previous guests, Michael Pace, said he was at a cookout with all his friends, and something popped up about the Dr. Seuss, Horton, Here's a Who, and he said he had this idea, and he just ran to the bathroom and started writing it in his phone. And like people thought he was choking or something. Like they're like, Mike, what happened? He's like, no, just leave me.
Yeah.
He goes, I had it, and he wrote this song, and it's about his grandfather.
Oh wow.
And
his grandfather suffers from dementia.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
The elephant has supposedly the greatest memory. Right? Elephants don't forget anything.
Oh, okay.
And so the song "Even Elephants Forget Sometime."
Oh wow.
It's about his grandfather's inability to remember the relationship he has with his
that's
grandson.
heavy.
What a cool
really
title,
heavy.
too.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah, he's
Great song.
another up-and-coming musician.
Yeah, composition can be like that sometimes, but other times composition is just work like anything else. I mean, the same way you get up and just do your job. I mean, if it's your job to compose that day, you just hit it, and just 90% of it could be junk that day. I compose way more than I release. It's 90% of it gets thrown out. And I mean, JC could probably relate to that from writing. It's just like
it's how you find your way to what you find.
Yeah, you just gotta
go
chip away at things. And so sometimes it's work. Yeah, sometimes you get those great things that just happen and they're quick. But that's, in my experience, that's few and far between. Nothing in music has been easy. None of it. It's like I've bled for every single thing that I can do, whether it be on my instrument, whether it be in composition, whether it being a good teacher. I think the passion for it came no problem. That was just probably in my blood, something I inherited. But
interesting. So I wanted to ask you, was there any musical influence in your house that led you to where you are?
Not as far as playing an instrument.
Okay.
None. My dad would have probably been an amazing musician. My dad just...
Interesting.
I bought him a clarinet one year for Christmas. He's from like the northern parts of Greece, way up, like almost close to Albania, right? So I always say like my earliest musical influences are the music of my dad's part of Greece. It's almost like, imagine what old school blues is to the people who invented it in this country. It's just like this, but on clarinet. It's just like this wailing, longing, a melancholy in the music, that's just amazing. If you know early blues, you can
rich in history.
Yeah, incredible. And he's got that in his heart. He's got it in his blood, so that music is the first music I heard. And I think he would have been a great musician if he, didn't need to come to this country and make a better life and all that thing. So I think I got it from him. But as far as instruments, no, I can't think of anybody who played. My first instrument was accordion because my folks love Lawrence Welk, right? Myron Florin, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's like, I played accordion. I guess I was pretty good at it. I don't know. I would go to the competitions. I was like this chubby 7-8-year-old, and I guess I did pretty good at the competitions. Probably nervous, ready to puke before them and everything. and then MTV hit, right? And so who played accordion? It was like Weird Al.
Yeah, right.
That's about it.
I'm just like,
I was gonna say,
I'm like Eddie Van Halen's like killing it right now, and just like Weird Al's the only guy I see playing my instrument. I'm like, something's got to change, man. So it all changed after that.
The second part of that would be your love of teaching.
Yeah.
Was there a teacher that really had an impact upon you as you came up?
Charlie Binox. Charlie was the guy, man. But I gotta give shout outs to the guys. There was a great teacher out of Lowell by the name of David Souza, who's my private teacher from like 12 up until I went to college. John Wilkins was my private instructor at Berkeley. He was the first teacher, because I wasn't a jazz player at Berkeley. I was still a long-haired kid chasing rock star dreams. You know what I mean? I didn't even think I could play that music. And I remember I went to my lesson that day, and I told John, I was just like, I wish I could play like a jazz guy. And he's like, no, man, you do. You know? And he was like the first guy that kind of pulled the curtain away to make me see that this was just music like any other music. It was just going to take a heck of a lot more work than learning Smoke on the Water or something like that. You know what I mean? So he was incredible. He's still around. He's retired, but he was incredibly important. I did my grad work with John Wheatley, who teaches at, that was at UMass Lowell, but he also teaches at Berkeley. And if anybody can go see John Wheatley play, he's a genius. He's a genius. I think at one point he knew like 3,000 standards and can play them for you in any key. It was incredible. Bruce Bartlett, who also teaches at Berkeley, but I studied with him privately after I graduated. He was an incredible teacher. He was one of those guys that kind of took me to that next level of awareness of where my playing needed to go when I didn't even know where it needed to go, you know? And then I went to Charlie Banakis, and Charlie taught some of the most famous jazz musicians on the planet. You know, whether you do what I do, whether you're playing or whether you're at the level of like a Wynton Marsalis, it doesn't matter. He created a brotherhood with musicians all across the world because we all studied with him, you know. So those are the guys.
Yeah, wow, it's incredible.
Quite a list. JC and Mike, besides music, what do you guys like to do?
Oh, I got her into Stranger Things this week. Okay, should never watch Stranger Things, and we're binging the whole thing again, man. I'm psyched.
Oh, that's awesome.
I am a fantasy movie escapism buff. I mean, lock me in a room with anything that makes me feel like the 1980s again, and I am there, man. I'm just like that. I'm a big movie person, you know.
Fun.
We love to travel, though. We travel a lot. We love to go out to dinner and stuff like that. We're pretty simple. I sometimes think that our lives are so busy in what we do that the simplest things, like just binging a Netflix TV show, is our perfect night.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're very boring people.
Yeah, we're big on what place are we checking out for dinner tonight, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so with that, any favorite spots in Nashville for dinner?
Well, I will say we always complain that we miss the Boston area as far as food and restaurants are concerned, because we both really love seafood, and you just cannot get fresh seafood in Nashville. But there's very good Mexican in Nashville.
Yep.
So we're very big on going for margaritas and tacos
We
and
kind of
things.
stay in our little area, our little hometown area, rather than like going into Nashville proper to
absolutely,
eat.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Everyone's like,
Don't blame me.
because it's a little bit crazy down there as of late. If you visited, you know, so it's like we kind of just keep to our own little area, you know. But
What were your dreams when you were a kid?
I want to be a rock star.
You wanted to be a rock star?
No question.
Really?
No question.
You didn't want to be a firefighter or a doctor
no,
or something? No,
you know,
a rock star.
I didn't even want, you know, if you told me that, you know, I would be known as an educator as much as a player, I'd be like, no way, man. I'm just going to be rocking out, you know.
Well,
famous,
you're
you know?
definitely an inspiration in the music industry.
It happens in
not.
happens in ways you never think. But no, man, I wanted to just rule the world on a stage with hair flying in the wind, you know. That's what I wanted.
How about an unknown or a spot that you won't find? Obviously, you don't want to be down on Broadway, but your jazz around Nashville or around your area. Are there any cool, like you could go over to, we talked about where John visited not long ago down in Hilton Head, South Carolina. Beautiful spot, jazz, history rich. Yeah. Any spots like that around Nashville that people should know about?
Rudy's Jazz Room.
Rudy's Jazz
Big
Room.
plug.
Okay.
Adam, you listening? I just plugged you in Boston. No, Rudy's is our place.
And now you know how to get in if you need to. Call and ask for Adam.
I'm friends of Mike's.
Yeah, Rudy's is our place. That's as close to like not as close. It is a proper jazz club that you would see in New York City, and lots of everything from straight ahead jazz to fusion to vocal stuff.
You've not only gigged there, but you enjoy the time.
Oh,
watching.
you have to. You got to go support your people. Yeah. I actually go to see more local shows and support my peers more than I probably see concerts that come through town.
That's great.
You know,
that's great.
That's my favorite place in town to see jazz.
Well, I do want to say, you know, I think one thing that's really cool is how many of your students have gone on to play for really big names in the industry. I don't think you talk about that enough, and shameless plug, I think you should.
I think most important, you give a student the tools to do whatever they want to do the most. You know, some, like I said, like some people have aspirations of, playing with a Luke Combs or playing with whoever, you know. And if you know that about them and you want to steer them that way or help them in those endeavors, that's great. But, you know, everybody wants different things, and I think if you want to be a good teacher, you can't just have like a blanket teaching philosophy, because there is no such thing. Everybody comes to you with something that they need, and you can't really push your goals of your creativity on the student. It's not even, you can't even push your path on the student. All you can do is like, this worked for me. I'm going to give you what I think you need to help you achieve what you want to do. So yeah, so there's some kids that do want that kind of commercial success. There's other kids that want to go to New York and hash it out in the trenches and play standards, and that's a whole other different endeavor. And other kids want to do something else, So.
Do any of these kids come up to you knowing that you've kind of got to a point that you've made it and asked for recommendations or ask,
Sure. Sure.
What kind of advice do you give them?
Concentrate on the music first. Concentrate on your instrument first. Don't, like you guys mentioned earlier, keep learning. It almost becomes like a lifestyle thing. Like you go to the gym and you eat healthy. You know what I mean? It's like you get into a habit of doing that every day. It's the same thing with music. Like if I go to bed at night, I need to feel that I learned a little bit something different, or I got a little better at something I wasn't as good at yesterday. That's kind of my litmus test for how well I did that day. I think it's imparting that knowledge on them to just keep improving. That's the most important thing. I really do believe if you take care of the music, everything else is going to be okay. That's huge. That's a big part of it. The other thing is, like JC talked about earlier, like to be a good person and just to support your community and not to treat it like a competitive thing. You should be part of your community and trying to build it up and trying to make it better. Like I'm so proud of being in the community I'm in. It's not about me scrounging to try to get to some top of it, which is non-existent. I just love it, and I love the people in it, and I love to play with those people, and I love to go hear them play. So it's about really just having that type of attitude wherever you want to work, and you'll get a good reputation. It's nothing you'll have to fight for. It's just be yourself and be patient. Those two things, everything else will be okay. If you concentrate on the music, you work really hard and really make it a point to support your community and other musicians' endeavors and just make what you do known, I think you'll be okay. And everything else could take you down a million other trajectories. I don't know what those are going to be. I can't tell a student what those are going to be because I don't know where their lives are going to go.
Right. Yeah, that advice is incredible.
That's anywhere. That's anywhere. Not in my town. That's here in Boston. It doesn't matter where you set up shop.
Right.
Right. If you're going to commit and want to go down that road, be committed.
Yeah, exactly.
And go all the way with it.
Exactly.
So again, Mike, how do people find out about what you're doing, where you're going to be, stuff that's going on in your life?
My website's MikeValerasmusic.com. Mike Valeras is my handle for everything, for Instagram, for Facebook. Google search, I'm there. iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your music. All info for contacting me is there. Just send me a DM or, I'm easy to find.
Awesome.
Name of the new album?
Is Cover Me.
Cover Me. And what's your favorite song off the new album?
My favorite song, Digging in the Dirt, is up there. Yep, I like that one. And there's a really creative version of Nardis by Miles Davis on there that actually stemmed out of a social media post. Like I wanted to post something on social media that day, and I decided to just like play this tune Nardis in just like this really weird way. I didn't even think about how I was doing it. I didn't analyze it musically. I didn't analyze it cerebrally. And it ended up being really cool. And I started getting some DMs saying, what did you do to that song? It's like, it sounds different. So I'm like, I don't know. So I analyzed it and I'm like, wow, this is actually time changes, do some weird things. I'm like, maybe I should actually analyze this and write it down. And it ended up being the first song of the record.
Great. Well, again, on behalf of Musicians and Beyond, John Sarabian, Mark Lawhorn, JC Don Valeras, Mike Valeras would like to thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming in.
Had a great time.
Safe travels home.
Thank you.
Thank you for being our friend.
Welcome back to New England.
Thank you.